Hello, and welcome to the Summer 2012 special edition of MPS Today. We're hosting this shortened version of the show to highlight the upcoming middle school parent nights that each of our middle schools are hosting before the beginning of the school year. As always, you can watch the show on your local cable channel 98 and at the school website www.mps.k12.mi.us/MPS-TV. Now, our technology experts at the district have told me I can make this special announcement. The show will also be available on each of the websites for the 3 middle schools as well. This move is a part of our ongoing efforts to make the show more accessible to you, our viewers. Now, we're privileged to be joined in the studio today by Lori Pritchard and Paul Schroll, our assistant principals from Northeast and Jefferson Middle Schools. Lori and Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Now, to start off, why don't you tell us about yourselves and what you've done here at the district?
I was first hired in the district at the Juvenile Care Center, where I taught for about 4 years. Then I moved over to Midland High as an administrator of special education, and I taught and directed that department, and shortly after became an assistant principal over at Midland High, and I did that for a number of years. And this will be my 3rd year now at Northeast as an assistant principal.
Okay, great.
Sure, and my beginning at MPS was at Midland High School as the department chair for science, and I did some teaching there as well for 3 years, and then moved to Dow High. I was science department chair and assistant principal for a while. Then did just some assistant principaling at Dow High, and now I'm assistant principal at Jefferson.
Okay, so you've both done some real important things here.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, tell us about the parent nights. When are they at each of the schools? Because they're a different night for each school, correct?
Go ahead, Lori.
The first is coming up on August 22nd at Northeast. The second one is at Jefferson on the 23rd, and the last one is on August 27th at Central.
Okay. Now, Lori, if you can give us an overview, what will be happening at each of the parent nights?
Basically, we'll start off the evening, the actual parent night at 5:45 in either the gymnasium or the theater auditorium at Central. And then it'll break in, we'll have an overview by 2 people from the Legacy Center, Jennifer Hieronyma and Pam Singer. And they will talk about the 40 developmental assets of adolescence. And then the parents will break into small breakout sessions on various topics, 5 topics actually, that they'll pick 4 out of 5 of the topics to attend. The first being mean and bullying behaviors. The second being today's trends in drugs and alcohol. Then cyber safety. Then understanding and tolerating teens. And the last, promoting a social or an academic environment at home, supporting teens with an academic environment at home. And basically, for parents that'll be just coming from work, that maybe need something to eat before the sessions or didn't have an opportunity to get their own childcare, we'll back it up to 5 o'clock, where we'll provide some light food and drink from 5 till 5:30. And then we will also have some childcare available starting at 5:45 in the cafeteria, and we'll have some activities for the kids. And that has been funded for us by a subgroup of the Midland Community Foundation called the Violence Prevention Network. So they have given us some money for not only some food and some drinks, but also for some raffle items that we'll be raffling off throughout the evening.
That sounds great.
Yeah, great opportunities.
So at each of the schools, 5 o'clock will be a light dinner and refreshments and a chance for childcare to be available for parents. And then the actual event will start about 5:45.
That's correct. Okay. And we're going to try to limit the actual sessions to the parents. And if the kids are there present in the evening, then they can be in the cafeteria with the activities.
Sure. Sounds like fun. Now, Paul, I know that the 40 assets from the Search Institute provided some of the inspiration for this event. What can you tell us about the 40 assets for young people?
The assets are broken into 2 parts. There's external assets and there's internal assets. The external assets really focus on support that our youth need, activities that they can take part in, and boundaries that we need to set for them that are healthy and lead to, again, to the building and that success as they continue to grow. Then the internal assets are based in values and skills. And so we know that the values and skills affect their behavior. And so, again, finding out what youth are committed to and supporting through purposeful interaction with youth building building the capacity in them. Again, it's nudging. It's always nudges. Right. It's really not a program that you buy and implement. It's things that you can do every day. It's things that parents are doing every day, and they're going to be affirming those things. But there are some parts of our community I think that this is going to be very valuable for, because they're going to be able to take it and use it as a tool to help our youth, again, lead to success.
It's so interesting. You know, we have a 13-year-old at home, and I love him dearly, and he's wonderful. And at the same time, we have seen some of those changes where he starts to push back a little bit. And as a parent, I know that you talk about internal and external assets, and it's very interesting. The idea that we can provide our young people, whether they're in our family or in our neighborhood or in our schools, with things externally, provide support systems, provide mentors for them, examples for them, activities for them. But then we also need to help them build capacity on their own, so that they're making positive, constructive decisions for themselves too. One
of the things that I think is critically important too, that these 40 assets are common sense kinds of things that, like you said, purposeful. If you're more deliberate about making sure that we have a good cross-section of each of these areas, and that each of these areas are represented in a family structure or in a community structure or support system, then the students are more likely to refrain from those risk-taking behaviors that you talked about. And they don't cost money, and some of them are very simple. You know, like how many people are in a circle of influence for a child? You know, and when we talk about circle of influence, we talk about the teachers that work with that student, the parenting figures, the extended family, the neighbors, those kinds of things. Some kids don't have a very broad spectrum or a very broad circle of influence, and that's important for us to consider how we can do that. That's just one of the variables or one of the assets.
Sure. Now at the parent nights, we have some presentations going on, 5 different presentations, right? Cyber safety, tolerating teams, drugs and alcohol, mean and bullying behavior, and how to support your students academically at home. So who is presenting, and give us a little more detail about what they'll be talking about.
Sure. What was the first one again?
Cyber safety.
Sure. How about I talk about the cyber safety? Sure. We know that students are plugged in more than ever.
Absolutely.
With all types of different electronics and devices. Those present challenges as a parent, because you want those to be healthy interactions, and they also present opportunities because kids then can use them as a tool. We want them to use it as a healthy tool. And so cyber safety is really giving parents some tips on how to manage all this new technology, the level of understanding that they should have, which is not a critical understanding. They don't need to know how to fix things, but they probably should know, if they've bought the latest gadget, what that gadget actually can do. How does it access the internet, if it does? Where will their child be able to receive signal to, and what they're producing from it. And so it's also, I think, then the cyber safety component. There's an aspect to that where you sit down with your child with the technology and you talk about it because it's shared. And our parents are all controlling it because they're probably all paying for it. And so there's that responsibility then to make sure that their son or daughter is using it in a way that they would approve.
Sure. And who will be talking to the parents about that?
We have 2 individuals that are going to help us with that. We have Officer Chris Wenzel. He's a community relations officer for the Midland Police Department.
Sure.
And we have Chris Sabrin, who is our media curriculum specialist and dealing with technology here for MPS. And they have some great tips. I think it's going to be an awesome session for parents.
That will be great. They're both very knowledgeable, and they've done these presentations before.
Yes, many times.
Yeah. Well, Lori, can you tell us about one of the other sessions?
Yeah, one of the other sessions is today's trends with drugs and alcohol. And basically, I think that session is critically important for all parents to come to. I think that some of the perceptions are for parents that, you know, I have a really good relationship with my son or daughter, and they talk to me about everything, so that's not something I need to go to. But I think it's important even for those parents who really do have quality relationships with their kids to go, because a lot of the things that will be discussed in the session include things like developing parameters, like, for example, strategies for parents to continue to implement with intent and with purpose, so that they're not going to be tempted to indulge when they go to that party, because realizing that all students are humans, all kids are humans, and they can make a mistake just as well as we can. And while they do have a lot of the morals and values that we've instilled in them, not to do drugs and not to do alcohol, they may make a mistake, and they need to be equipped what to say and what to do and how to handle that. So parents will be encouraged to consider things like the prescription medications that are in the cabinet, not making that a temptation for even the best kids. You know, put it somewhere private where it's not as accessible to them behind closed doors, and other strategies that parents can utilize to maintain the safety and the good decisions that their kids are making. So a good session. It'll be presented by 3 individuals. Officer Jeremy Davis from the police department. He's the school resource officer at Midland High. Officer Jaima Javier, who is the school resource officer through the Midland Police Department at Dow High, and then also Detective Lieutenant Mark Irby, who is a bayonet officer through the Midland State Police.
Okay, great. Tolerating teens, meaning bullying behavior?
Sure, yeah, I can speak to that.
Okay.
Jackie Warner and Diana LaRue, both associated with our local probate court, are going to be helping us with that. The bottom line for tolerating teens and dealing with it as an issue is to reduce the emphasis on all those hot buttons that teens tend to bring to the table and that parents seem to get all excited about. To give some strategies on how to recognize those and de-escalate and build a relationship built more on communication as they become adolescents and as they advance, to avoid some of those things that may end up being barriers then to that communication, which we know in adolescence then can lead to some of those high-risk behaviors.
Absolutely. You know what I find interesting about tolerating teens in that whole kind of area is we want to raise our children and our students to be strong, independent people that can think for themselves, that can make good decisions, and part of that process is a little bit distance from mom and dad, being independent, but it's hard to help manage that while it's happening, isn't it? So that sounds like a really important session.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you hear about a lot in the news is mean and bullying behavior, and there's been some new legislature here in Michigan about that. So I'm curious to hear what's going to be happening at the mean and bullying behavior session as well.
Basically, I think that it's critically important to start off that discussion. First of all, it'll be presented by a gentleman in our community, Kim Summerix, and he is the Child and Youth Services Coordinator and Outpatient Therapist for the Family Children Services.
Oh, excellent.
And he's been very involved and instrumental in conveying this message to, you know, for other middle school programs. He's been to Northeast before. He's also been to Jefferson and Central, I believe,
Yes.
And did some programming for us. But he's also going to be coming, and he'll be talking about, I think, the first and foremost important thing: what is bullying? Because I think it's an overused word that we categorize anything that's just not nice or not friendly, and that's not the case. I mean, obviously, we want to address anything that's going to be harmful to a student or emotionally scarring or a bad situation that happens at school, but there is something that is specifically bullying and something that specifically isn't. So part of his function that evening, the evenings of the presentations, will be to identify what is bullying, and then the 3 people who are involved in bullying: the bully, the bystander, and the victim. And he'll be talking about the instrumental roles of each of those people in the bullying, you know, event, and what each person or parent can do if they suspect that their child is a bully, or if they have been a bystander, or if they are a victim. Give the parent strategies and how to work with their own children, and give the parent strategies of what to do in terms of the school and how they can handle that situation, instead of just feeling powerless and feeling like it's just a thing that they have to cope with as a part of adolescence and growing up. So.
Great. Now, the academic support at home, you know, what's interesting there is as our students move up into middle school, the subjects start to get more specific, more specialized, and in some cases more difficult for not just the child, but for sometimes us as parents too. So what can our parents do? What would they be talking about beyond just, you know, helping a child with homework? I mean, what can we do for academic support?
Well, we have volunteers from each of the 3 buildings, teachers who, of course, they know exactly what the child needs to do to be successful. The whole idea is to create a seamless transition from school to home, so that if a child comes home, mom and dad, or whoever that important person is at home that's going to ask them this question, what do you have for homework, can be answered, first of all, correctly, and then that there's some direction that can take place from that point. Further, using our home access center and accessing students' grades. Grades are they're live, and so they're immediately accessible.
Yeah,
every
home
night.
access is a wonderful tool for
You
parents,
bet.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. And so managing the student, and again giving them the push when they need it, and celebrating the successes when they have them, because we know, again, middle schoolers, sometimes they don't come home when they get in and tell their parents that they got an A. Sometimes it's just kind of, it's what they do. And so it's just another communication tool. It's very powerful because it is the grade for Home Access Center. And there are strategies in each of the buildings that I know that our teachers are going to impart that are going to be fairly common sense. But again, if it's a purposeful use of those strategies, and if students can make them a part of and make it a habit as they get ready for high school, and that's really what middle school is all about. We need to prepare them so they can be successful in high school, the rigors that high school bring and all the graduation requirements. So, we back up a little bit and we say, well, how do we get them ready for that?
How do we build healthy study habits
Certainly.
when they're in middle school so that it's second nature by the time they get to high school and it gets even more complicated, right?
bet.
Yeah, the Home Access Center, I found it very helpful to be able to see how my students are doing, and when they're doing great, you can pat them on the back, and when they're struggling, say, hey, what do we need to do to get this taken care of? It's just a really nice tool.
One of the other things I was going to say too is there are resources that are available for parents that I don't think they realize are resources. For example, we put out the school calendar, and I think that a parent's tendency may be, and it's certainly the middle schoolers' tendency, just to look at when the parties are and when this is happening, but also to make note of when the marking periods end. Not just because the grades will be due and that will be the end of that marking period, but if they don't see a report card come home within 2 weeks, then that's a flag. This is the time frame that I should see one come home, and then what to do if you don't get one. And so that's a simple strategy that will hold your student more accountable. There are other things within our buildings. Parents can, in I think all of the buildings, ask to be put on a mailing list of emails for announcements. And that tells the parents what are going on a day-to-day, week-by-week, month-by-month basis at the schools. So staying involved and staying engaged is another strategy, just to stay informed. But some of those simple things that they can do in use of the planner. So that session won't simply be just the Home Access Center, but it'll be, like you said, other strategies and little tricks that are common sense for us, but perhaps not to the parents who don't have those at their disposal and are working with them on a daily basis.
So that'd be supporting students academically at home.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, they sound like 5 wonderful sessions. And really, with the umbrella, with the idea of the 40 assets overarching everything, it sounds like a wonderful night at each of the schools. Now, what challenges do you think this event will help you overcome at Central, at Northeast, at Jefferson?
Well, I think that one of the things that has been a challenge is to get parents who it's difficult to come in to an event like this because they may be a single parent and they don't have childcare available. We're going to be having some people to help them with that. We're also going to have, if they're on a tight schedule, we've got some food so they can come in and grab a snack or grab something to eat before they come. But the actual event itself will help us to hopefully bring to light some of the simple things that we can do to be better educators, and for the parents to be better parents, and for the kids to be better kids. And that's the bottom line. And I think that none of us are perfect. We all can do a better job, and I think that the communication piece is pivotal and key to helping to bridge some of these gaps that occur. So when you talk about what is the issue that's going to be hopefully overcome by this, communication is really, I think, the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to bridging.
Sure. Now, what about the middle school parent night excites you the most, Paul?
Oh, I think having parents in the building is always a positive thing. I get to see the children every day, and that's a fantastic part of my job. It's why I come to work every day.
Sure.
But getting the parents and having a chance to talk with them really about the 40 assets or whatever we talk about that is positive, that can, make an impact in their life or make an impact in their child's life, very exciting to me. We have a great set of speakers. We have very fantastic buildings. We have staff that are volunteering to come in. We have a community that's supporting us with money.
Right.
It's just, this is really, I think, you can't set up something better for a parent who is either already been a part of middle school and is saying, I don't really know what goes on at middle school anymore because I kind of had to let my kid go. Or the parent who's going to be starting with a child in middle school and is saying, I've been so involved, and now what do I do? This is going to be an opportunity, I think, to open some of those doors. And I really think the benefit from it is it's going to be after we do this program.
Absolutely.
It's going to be how parents stay connected, think of some things that we can do that we hadn't thought of before. Whether it's for an additional program or next year's program or what. I'm really excited to see what happens from the interaction and the beginning of a collaboration between parent and the school.
So it's not just about that night, but it's about, like you were saying, Laura, the communication and building that collaboration with
This
parents.
is really a start.
Sure.
Right. And what I like is that all of the middle schools are doing this, and we're sending the same message. And so it'll be an opportunity for all of our middle school group to go through the system and be informed of these things very specifically and get the same message. I think that's really important.
You know, it's interesting because I sit here with multiple roles as an educator, but also as a parent of 3 children. You know, my wife and I work so hard, and all our parents in our school system work so hard to help our young people be successful. And you realize that whether you're talking about school or making healthy choices or growing up to be positive, contributing citizens and members of our families long term, that it really is a partnership, and we can't do it alone. It's the schools, it's the families, and whoever's involved in the young people's lives at home, and the community all working together. And this is a great example of a partnership between those 3.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Scott, that's a great point, and it certainly fits into the vision for the district. It certainly fits the mission of the district and the missions of each of the buildings.
Yeah.
And so there's really a nice connection between those.
And the agencies that are coming, you know,
Right.
and participating.
Yeah, our community involvement is so important
Yep.
and so wonderful here in Midland that it's so prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds great. Now, once again, tell us the dates and times for each of the 3 schools.
Okay, we want parents to mark their calendars
Yep.
for August 22nd, and that'll be Northeast, August 23rd at Jefferson, and August 27th at Central Middle School.
Okay, great. Well, Paul and Lori, thanks for joining us today to talk with us about the middle school parent nights at each of our 3 middle schools. What a nice resource for our families, and it's just a great way to get the school year started.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Now remember, this show will be available at the MPS website, www.mps.k12.mi.us/MPS-TV, and on your local cable channel 98, and on the websites for each of the 3 middle schools. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and we'll see you next time on MPS Today.